to continue with the Executive Director's report, we do want to offer some responses to the common questions and comments that we did receive at both of these open houses, as well as was publicly made to the San Antonio-Bexar County Metropolitan Planning Organization on Monday, August 24th. Specifically, the MPO was told that the RMA and Federal Highway Administration say nothing can be done on 281, but federal law, National Environmental Policy Act, allows for a different alternative from the toll road to move forward, and that the overpass and frontage road fix has environmental clearance, is able to move forward today. We heard these statements on the 24th from Ms. Hall. We heard these statements, and we've seen these statements repeated in comments to the court reporters on both the 25th, the meeting on August 25th, as well as the meeting from August 27th, and some of the emails and comments we've received. We wanted to provide this illustration to the board today and also to the public. We did show this on the open house on the 27th. This is the history of environmental clearances on US 281 north of Loop 1604. In 1984, the first environmental assessment was done going up to Evans Road. In 1990, construction occurred on the expressway section from Bitters Road to Sonterra. In 2000, from Sonterra to Evans Road was reevaluated as an environmental assessment. In late 2004-2005 timeframe, you saw environmental clearance granted and the project started to do improvements from Loop 1604 up to Marshall Road. And please note, as shown on the screen, that a separate categorical exclusion for a grade separation at Stone Oak had been prepared prior to 2005. There was also an environmental assessment prepared from Evans Road up to Borgfield to the county line. This project did have construction start, a lawsuit was filed, environmental clearance was withdrawn, the project was canceled at an approximate cost of $9 million to the taxpayers because construction crews had already mobilized and work had indeed begun. The Texas Department of Transportation and Federal Highway Administration redid the environmental assessment for this corridor, looking at the entire corridor from Loop 1604 to Borgfield Road. That took about 2 years and $2 million. In February of 2008, a lawsuit was again filed on this project saying that, in challenging the environmental clearance, saying an environmental impact statement was what was needed, given the amount of environmental controversy on this corridor. On October 1st, 2008, all approvals related to that environmental assessment were withdrawn. At this time, there does not exist any environmental clearance to allow added capacity projects to occur on US 281 north of Loop 1604. There is not a separate environmental clearance for a non-toll project to move forward. There is simply no environmental clearance on 281. Today, the Alamo RMA has started the environmental impact statement as required by the Federal Highway Administration. We do have copies of that letter available on our website, 411on281.com. We're also looking at a categorical exclusion for the Super Street project because it's based primarily on safety and operational concerns, and it's not adding capacity. That, of course, is the trigger for this more detailed environmental impact statement. We've also got a categorical exclusion in process to add 2 levels to the existing 3-level interchange at Loop 1604 and US 281. To put it more another way again, same thing I've just said, October 1st we received the notice that all environmental clearance was withdrawn. On November 11th, the Federal Highway Administration made the determination that any future additional capacity on 281 would be required to undergo an environmental impact statement. And on the screen you can see the excerpt from the letter. Federal Highways believes the EIS process is necessary and called for under their regulations and those of the Council of Environmental Quality due to the level of environmental controversy in the subject area. I do want to highlight that, the level of environmental controversy. This is more than simply a toll or non-toll discussion. This is looking at the human and natural environment surrounding any road improvements along US 281. So what happened to the past plans? We have heard for a number of public meetings, we started hearing again, that you could complete the entire project up to the county line for approximately $100 million, take 18 months, be done in half the time or a tenth of the cost And this is actually a document taken directly from the 281 Overpasses Now website as of this morning. And we do have Ms. Hall's statement made to the NPO on Monday as well, that the original plan was $100 million going up to the county line, and even adjusted for inflation, would only be a $200 million plan today. I'd like to walk through that very briefly. From this same document, so we're using the same reference point, these are the funding sources that are available, or were identified in 2001. Let me correct myself. These are the funding sources that were identified as of September 2001. Approximately $30.9 million for 0.6 miles north of Loop 1604 to 2.5 miles north of Loop 1604. This stretch gets us up to Stone Oak. At Stone Oak Parkway, to do a grade separation of $17 million, and safety improvements at Bortfield Road of $9.3 million. All other funding sources shown on here, while they were anticipated, were not realized. That funding was not contained within the Transportation Improvement Plan, which is at this time a 3-year window, back in 2001. Today, based on changes from federal law, is now a 4-year window for funding all transportation improvements. So before you can let a project to construction, it has to be within this 4-year Transportation Improvement Plan to have funding obligated to be able to let that project move forward. And again, let's look at these top numbers, looking at $30.9 million, $17.247 million, and a $9.3 million safety project. That is the total amount of funding that was contained within the Metropolitan Transportation Plan up through September 2001 for improvements up to Stone Oak Parkway. Or more specifically, the project shown in blue that's bracketed on the screen is what was let to contract in 2005, which was subsequently stopped by a lawsuit and the withdrawal of environmental clearance. There was no other plan to send this project further to the county line under this document. So we're looking at a total available funding amount of $57.4 million as identified in the 2001 document that is continually referenced. When this plan was let to bid, the low bid competitive contract that was awarded for Zachary Construction was $78 million. Again, let me stress this. The low bid contract that was awarded was $78 million. This was not a, however you'd like to classify this, to imply improprieties to the contract. This was a competitive low bid contract. At that point, the difference between the amount available and the amount of the contract was approximately $20 million. Other projects in this region would be delayed in order to fund this $78 million improvement. Again, this $78 million contract would have gotten us up through Stone Oak, a distance of approximately 3.5 miles, and would not have gotten us to the Bexar-Comal County line. So why did it take till 2005 to start construction if this document was produced in 2001? A couple of reasons. First, necessary right-of-way was not fully acquired until 2005. Through either eminent domain proceedings or negotiation with landowners, we had to have the necessary right-of-way in place, in this case we being the Texas Department of Transportation, before any construction could start. Design plans still needed to be finalized. Because this was a low bid contract, traditional design, bid, build contract, the design plans had to be complete in order for the contract to even go out to bid, for construction companies to be able to do their estimations on their quantities and actually submit a price. And until the right-of-way was secured, either a possession or a use of the right-of-way, no construction could proceed. So again, we go back to the environmental history of this corridor. 2005, we have an environmental assessment that's been reevaluated up through Marshall Road. We have an overlapping environmental assessment that's done from Evans to the county line, the categorical exclusion at at Stone Oak. But all of that was done to secure the first 3.5 miles of roadway being expanded from 0.6 miles north of Loop 1604, Sonterra, up to Stone Oak.